Today on the channel, I'm going to take this rather plain looking Herschel bag, and I'm going to put a big patch on it. This is an iron-on patch, so I'm going to iron it on first just to hold it in place, but then I'm going to stitch it on to make sure it holds. There's a couple of tips and tricks, but this is a pretty easy one. So if you want to see how I put a patch on some pretty tough fabric, stay tuned with me till the end. But for now, let's get going. So the embroidered patch has been with us since the dawn of the embroidery machine. It really became popular sometime around World War I, when machines were able to turn out patches that would indicate rank and other accolades for soldiers. Later on, people would apply a heat-activated glue to the back, which was supposed to make it easier to just iron the patch right onto the fabric. I have always found that fails with a reasonable amount of force pressure or just running it through the wash. So if I get an iron-on patch like this one, I will iron it on. That sort of holds it in place while I'm sewing, but I will always sew around the edges to make sure that it holds. I prefer using a sewing machine. I know some of you guys don't like power tools. But I really think a sewing machine is essential for doing this kind of work. Yeah, you can sew on a patch with your hand if you want. You can get out your thimble. But fact is, the best way to attach a patch to anything is to pick the thread that matches the edge of the patch and use a machine. If you don't have a machine, they're really easy to get. Walk down to your thrift store. I bet there's one there for 25 bucks. Learning how to use a sewing machine is as essential as learning how to use any other power tool. So today I'm going to use my sewing machine. I'll show you how I do it. So what are you going to need to do this very easy DIY? Well, first you're going to need an iron-on patch. You can tell an iron-on patch because the glue is usually pretty shiny. If you flip it over and put it between you and a light source, you should see the light source reflecting off the shiny glue that they stick to the back of the patch. If you don't have an iron-on patch, you can get glue that can glue a patch to fabric at any craft store. You need something to attach it to. In my case, I'm going to use this Herschel bag here. It's a little bit plain, kind of beige, not a lot going on. I'm going to jazz it up today. You're going to need something to put over the patch when you iron on it. I'm going to use a pillowcase. You're going to need an iron. You're going to need a sewing machine. You're going to need that sewing machine to have a heavy-duty needle. You're going to need to have thread that matches the outside edge of the patch, in my case, black. And you're going to need scissors for clipping the thread when you're done. Other than that, not too much to it. Let's get started. So I don't have an ironing board, so the first thing I'm going to do is lay down a towel on my clean work surface here. It's kind of like making an ironing board from scratch. Next thing, I'm going to open up the bag and lay the area of the bag I want to apply the patch to down so that it's completely separate from the back part of the bag. The next step is to heat up the part of the bag that I want to apply the patch to. The temptation for most people is just to lay the patch down, square it up, and start ironing from the top. But remember, the glue is under the patch, and it's going to take a while for the heat to transfer from the iron to that glue. You can help the process along by heating up the fabric underneath the glue first. That way, the glue has the greatest chance of melting appropriately, and you've got the greatest chance of making sure that patch sticks where it should. Now that the area is warm, the patch is going to be adhered to. I lay the patch into place, cover it with a pillowcase just to protect the surface, and begin ironing. Home irons aren't the best for distributing heat evenly, especially with a larger patch like this one. So I'm going to do my best, move it around, apply a little pressure. And I always think it's best to think of this as like cooking a steak. You don't want to sear the outside before the inside is appropriately cooked. In other words, you don't want to burn the top of your patch without properly melting the glue that's underneath. So as long as you sort of think that way, I find it works out okay. So now I've ironed the patch on, it's in place, but I'm not trusting that glue farther than I can throw it. I know that eventually if I put this bag through its paces, that patch is gonna start peeling off like a bad sunburn. So I'm gonna sew it on as well. If you've ever ironed a patch on and had it come off in the wash, or had your kid pull it off his clothes, you know, it can be really frustrating. So stitching it on, make sure it's not going anywhere. It's a pretty easy task. I loaded up my bobbin with the appropriate colored thread, in this case black, and my top thread is of course the same color. And I'm using a pretty heavy duty needle because this is a canvas bag and the patch itself is pretty thick. So I need a little bit of chutzpah to make it through. And basically I line it up so that the needle is going to fall right into the black part on the edge of the patch. I'm not going inside, I'm going right on it. And I'm gonna go all the way around the edge. I'm doing about as tight a stitch as the machine can do, and every time I get to a corner that's sharp, I bury the needle in the patch and in the bag, I lift the presser foot, pivot the whole thing, bring down the presser foot, and keep going. And all I gotta do is make sure that I stay equidistant from the edge of the patch and I don't tread onto that colored part, and I go all the way around. At the end, I do a back stitch just to anchor the thread, and then I'm done. Pull it out, cut the threads, and there's my patch. Cool. I think it's a big improvement. Suddenly this bag has gone from, do you have a bag? To, wow, cool bag. Not to say this bag wasn't cool before, it was pretty cool, but now it's like cool and noticeable. So how about you guys? Have you ever put a patch on? How'd it go? Did you get it on straight? Did it peel off in the wash? Leave those stories in the comment section below. I'd love to hear them. So I hope that helped you out. If it did, please feel free to like or subscribe. Liking and subscribing can really help out a channel. And if you would do that for this channel, I'd really appreciate it. And as always, until next week, take care, stay safe, have fun with your DIY projects, and I'll see you next Saturday.